let's switch to Democrats. Sean mentioned the historically bad poll number. CNN, same thing. The Democratic Party is at an extreme low point in terms of how people are thinking about them. The base is unhappy. The moderates are unhappy. I thought what happened last week, if it had happened to Republicans, would have gotten a lot more coverage, where you had the Democratic leader in the House not being willing to offer his support in a press conference. The Democratic leader in the Senate, he said, next question. Nancy Pelosi blasting Schumer, and even two folks who appear regularly on two-way, Ro Khanna and Richie Torres, more moderate Democrats, blasted Schumer as well on X and said, this isn't leadership. Obviously, AOC and others on the left have too. So,
well, also, by the way, the tepid responses from everything from Chris Murphy to Sheldon Whitehouse that weren't ringing endorsements. They weren't like we stand behind him. They were like,
yes,
he's technically the leader now.
He's okay for now. So, Dan, is this like a bump in the road for Schumer, who's on a book tour now, and he's going to face a lot of protests on his book tour? Is this, and questions from reporters as he tries to promote his book, which is on anti-Semitism, is this a bump in the road for Schumer, or the beginning of the end of his leadership, or something in between?
And by the way, awkward, tonight he's being interviewed by Richie Torres here in New York. So Department of Timing. I think it's to be determined, because I think what Schumer is facing now for the first time in his kind of 40-year rise, Schumer was always known both in the House and when he became kind of Harry Reid's right hand in the Senate as the smartest political person in the room. That he understood, every state, that he was always on the phone. He was always talking to the base, that he really studied districts, and that he understood who was the right candidate for that state. He was unafraid to back them, and then a lot of them ended up winning. Now, for the first time, what you're beginning to hear, and it's not just from like the AOCs of the world, but even from people who have been staunch defenders, is he's old, he's slow, and he's kind of a little bit afraid right now, that he's so concerned about preserving himself that he's not really acting and doing anything to get the party. He's not leading. And that's a danger zone for Chuck Schumer right now, that people are increasingly saying, like, you don't understand today, but you were really good yesterday.
So, Dan, you stole I literally was waiting to use the phrase danger zone, because for a different reason, though. When you go out and do a book tour, and you referenced it with Richie Torres today, you have to do interviews to promote them, right? Your publicist to set them all up. So you can't hide the way you normally could after a bad weekend, where you could just sort of go into, have a bunch of meetings or whatever. This is a danger zone for him, because he has to do the interviews, and he's going to get asked awkward questions over and over again. And this is where people tend to slip up. These kind of interviews that you're not used to, because you're doing non-traditional things, because you're promoting a book, not a policy. So you're going to outlets and to shows that you normally wouldn't. You're dealing with people who aren't normally questioning you about the motion to recommit or some inside baseball thing. So I think this entire next week, when he's out there, is a danger zone for him, because the level of question that he's going to get is not what he's, it's sort of like the pitch speed switches up. So it's not that you're not a good hitter. It's just that you're not used to hitting, a real slow ball from someone who, or a curve ball necessarily, or whatever. But like, he's, I think, going to have a very difficult week. And I just, at his age and what he's used to, this is the kind of week where he could slip up and potentially see the end of him by the end of the week.
Well, and the other problem for Schumer is, and this is like just understanding the modern media environment. Everyone agrees that for 30 years, Chuck Schumer understood media better than any Democrat, really. But look at what he did the last few weeks. He told the base, we're going to fight. I'm with you. I understand your energy. And he was telling everybody in private, this is not going to happen. This is not the place to do it. The politics aren't. And he almost thought that the right and the left hands would never find out about what he was saying to the other, when it was all over X. It was all over town. I mean, because he doesn't understand this. I mean, the guy still uses a flip phone. He just does not really understand the way that the world is changing around him. And that is a danger zone, to your point, Sean, as he goes out.
The difference that I see where Schumer screwed up is that I think he made the right call. And fair enough, I'm buying. Like, in other words, there was no play.
No, of course he did. Of course he did.
No, okay.
But not even disputable.
Right. Okay, he made the right play. We're all in visceral agreement on that. Where I think if I were a Democrat, I'd be pissed is exactly what Dan said. You told me to fight. I went out there to fight, and you knew I was going to die. Right? That's the problem, is that you now question his strategy, which was always his strength.
It's still not clear to me. It's still not clear to me what he thought was going to happen when he said they don't have the votes.
If you're a Dem, and this is what Dan was saying, is that I'm like, wait a second, you told me to charge the hill, and you knew we could never take it. Why did you do that? And then, by the way, when we're halfway up the hill, you go, hey, come back.
But you know what the thing is? And I wrote this.
Meet me at Junior's for cheesecake.
I mean, I wrote this on Substack last night. Fight is not a strategy. They had no strategy going into the CR. We did not spend weeks laying the predicate of what we were fighting for. It was the opposite. We're like, this is not the hill we're going to die on. And I think why everyone is so angry is it's the same thing for everything else with Donald Trump. We have no strategy for any of the shock and awe other than to say the base says fight, which is a rally cry, and stop Trump. But the number one thing in a strategy is goals, and we have no goals.
Yeah, I was talked out of thinking that Trump was the Democrats were in dire straits after the election. Steve Elmendorf and others, and Doug Sosnick and others convinced me no. And instead, it seems like they're in bigger trouble now than they were even after the election, because time has passed and the internal fissures, they are dramatic. I mean, to have Pelosi attacking Schumer is quite something, Sean.
But this needs to happen.
Her former top aide, Ashley Entienne, said, to beat Trump, we need clarity of purpose, discipline, and coordination. It's clear none of that exists right now. They are airing this in public in a way that is
Pelosi herself practically said it.
I know.
But here's the thing, though, guys. It's not just Chuck Schumer. Hakeem Jeffries his strategy was that Mike Johnson would screw up, and they would have to come to us. But we had no idea what we were going to leverage. He's
gotten off easy. He's gotten off easy.
I mean, the whole party has no strategy.
Yeah.
So this is a good conversation.